Hello ladies and gentlemen, Gaming Medley here, and welcome to my series Medley News and Punditry, where I give you a medley of gaming news from around the web and then follow it up with some personal commentary, all in a short bite-sized video so that you can keep yourself up to date with what's going on in gaming. In the background you will see me playing through any game that's tickling my fancy at the moment, and right now it's Dark Souls 1 Prepare to Die edition on the PC. For today's news, we have a few quick bites about Dying Light's #DrinkForDLC campaign, Quakecon 2016 from Bethesda, Heroes of the Storm's new character Rexxar, Destiny composer Marty O'Donnell's legal battle with Activision, and some more news about Guerrilla Games' Horizon Zero Dawn. For more substantial news, we have some more info on Fallout 4, as well as some new information about Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain storyline that you probably won't be happy to hear. Links to the time for each new segment can be found in the description, as well as any videos I mention in the segments. Let's begin. What originally started out as a joke response to Destiny's Red Bull promotion, the #DrinkForDLC campaign set up by the Dying Light developers has actually resulted in a full-fledged DLC for the game. Coming soon, the free DLC includes a new quest and new blueprint, all for drinking water. The quest is called the Fountain of Youth, which requires you to bring clean drinking water back to the quarantine zone, and the blueprint lets you make water balloons, which make groups of enemies super vulnerable to electricity. This DLC will run at roughly 10 hours of gameplay, feature a new drivable vehicle, and a massive new area. So this is pretty substantial as far as DLC goes. Season Pass owners will be able to download it for free, and everybody else has to pay $14.99 for this product. Once again, the Dying Light devs just showing how in touch they are with their community, and doing something pretty awesome, especially considering that they weren't really obligated to do this at all. Let's move right on to QuakeCon 2016 from Bethesda. So Bethesda has announced that QuakeCon 2016 will take place from August 4th through the 7th at the Hilton Anatoly in Dallas, Texas. So the event will once again feature studio director Tim Willett's annual QuakeCon presentation. Says Willits, the event is a true grassroots organization founded by only a group of fans and volunteers 20 years ago. The event is still supported by fans of ID Software / Bethesda and largely staffed by volunteers today. The event has grown and matured over the last 20 years, but what has always remained the same is the spirit of community gaming, people coming together to play their favorite games with friends and family. So QuakeCon will of course feature multiple panels and events, and of course the famous QuakeCon Bring Your Own Computer event. Last year, QuakeCon featured Doom, Fallout 4, and Elder Scrolls Online news, and it's probably safe to say that we'll get some new news about perhaps DLC for Fallout 4, some more Elder Scrolls Online news if they're actually keeping that going, and probably some stuff about Doom, as well as any upcoming games that they will have going on at the time. Reservations can be placed for the event now. So of course this is awesome. QuakeCon is always a fun event, and it's just nice to see that it's coming back. Last year's was the biggest QuakeCon ever, and they're probably aiming to go even bigger this year. Let's move right along to Heroes of the Storm's first ranged warrior, Rexxar. Anybody who's played World of Warcraft will know all about Rexxar. The fans love him and have been asking for him to feature story-wise in the game for several years. Well, while of course Blizzard isn't letting him have the story spotlight that this warrior deserves, he will be featuring in their MOBA, Heroes of the Storm, and they've released a spotlight video for him that will be linked in the description. Now, I'm not going to go through this hero or tell you all about all the things he does, because Blizzard has produced a video that does all that more professionally than I ever could, as well as add footage of the hero in the background. So I would suggest watching that if you want to know more about what he does. All I'll say is that he does have a bear which tanks for him and throws lots of axes, which sounds cool. As an avid Heroes of the Storm player, I can't wait to see this guy in action, and I look forward to playing him, even if I wish, Blizzard, that you would do something other than add him to Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm. Let's move right on along to Halo and Destiny composer Marty O'Donnell and his legal battle with Activision and Bungie. So recently, Marty O'Donnell composed the Music of the Spheres, which was a track that was supposed to be released before the Destiny game came out. However, Activision axed this and then actually released some of their own in-house music along with the game's E3 trailer. Understandably, this made O'Donnell very angry, and he actually started tweeting against Activision. He started interrupting press conferences. He tried to stop the trailer from going live. It was a whole big shitstorm. He requested to be released from the company. They fired him, quote, without cause, and essentially took away everything he has. Now, he won the court case where he petitioned to get all of his money and stock back, which will result in him getting back 192,188 shares of vested Bungie stock, as well as $142,500. However, as part of the settlement, he will have to give up the rights to the Destiny soundtrack album Music of the Spheres. Now, overall, I'm really happy he won this. Activision is typically pretty shitty, even though they don't get a lot of recognition for being shitty, and it's nice to see one of the little guys kind of come out on top. It's good to see creative freedom and creative integrity really being embraced here by the courts. So I'm very happy for O'Donnell. I'm very happy that this happened, and it's really a shame that we won't be seeing more of his music with Bungie anytime soon. Let's move on to Horizon Zero Dawn, one of the more hyped up presentations at the Sony PS4 event at E3. Expected to release in 2016 on PlayStation 4, Horizon Zero Dawn will feature, quote, a world comparable to other recent open world games. So we can assume that they mean Fallout 4, maybe Metal Gear, maybe Witcher 3, so it's going to be a big game. The Guerrilla managing director, Herman Holst, said that the biggest challenge they faced with Horizon Zero Dawn is actually, well, everything. A quote from Holst goes as follows: "This is so much more challenging on the team in every single way, but I find that doing something that is this refreshing and that is supported so strongly by the development team is probably even more important to the success of a title than how far you are out of your comfort zone. I feel a sense of love for this project among the team, and maybe that sounds corny, but it's really empowering." So we do know that Horizon Zero Dawn will be featuring several RPG mechanics, but if you were looking for more info on the story, well, tough luck. You probably won't be getting anything anytime soon, says the Horizon Zero Dawn senior producer Mark Norris. You will know everything about the old ones, and you will also find out where the machines are and why. You will also learn about the relationship between Aloy, the main character, and the machines, but I'm not going to say anything about it in advance. Players should experience it all themselves and find out. He said, "I always talk a lot about Vault 111, and I even have a Vault 111 hoodie, and they have shown in the trailer when the bomb struck, and I said, no, why did you do that? You ruined the whole mystery for me that Fallout always had." So what we can extrapolate from this little excerpt is that he's probably going to feature a more Dark Souls 1 style of storytelling, at least before the game comes out. Now, the story in the game will probably be presented much more than Dark Souls 1, but when Dark Souls 1 came out, nobody had any idea what the story was or anything about the story, which is nice because most games that come out nowadays already have a 3-page synopsis that explains the entire plot typed up like 3 weeks prior to release. I personally love this. I'm really glad that I'm not going to be able to just sit down and look up something about the story of the game and know what I'm going into before it's released. I'm glad that I'll be able to have that feeling of exploration and that feeling of finding something new whenever I discover something about the story. And I'm also really looking forward to this game because it just looks absolutely beautiful, and I'm really hyped up. I love RPGs like this. It seems like such a cool concept, what with these robot things. One thing that I'm kind of confused about is that in the trailer you saw a lot of like machine dinosaurs, a lot of machine animals, but nothing that looked kind of like a human, which you would think the machines would evolve into. So maybe that's a reveal that will happen at some point during the story, but as for now, it hasn't happened yet, and we're still kind of in the dark about everything concerning the story. I'm just excited for this game. It might be what makes me break down and get a PS4 finally. I held out for Bloodborne, but I just love RPGs like this so much, and I absolutely cannot wait to try it. Now, let's move on to some more substantial news concerning Fallout 4. So, Bethesda Studios just recently tweeted, "Many years of hashtag Fallout 4 voice recording complete, just over 111,000 lines, more than Fallout 3 and Skyrim combined." So this of course speaks to the length of the game. It's going to be a lot bigger than Skyrim presumably. Their lead producer says that he's wandered out in the world for about 400 hours and is still finding stuff he hasn't seen yet, and the game director Todd Howard said that, quote, "I'll be playing the game and run into something and be like, who built this? What is this? It's so big." So obviously this means this game is going to have an absolute wealth of content, it would explain why the next Elder Scrolls game is going to take so long to come out. They say they've spent many years doing the voice recordings for this, which would explain why if they're trying to outdo this game with the next Elder Scrolls one, it would take so many more years to come out. The saddest part about this for a lot of Fallout fans, however, will be that Eric Todd Dillums, the voice of Three Dog from previous Fallout games, will not be coming back in to voice any of these 111,000 lines. He tweeted, "I admit the finality of this tweet felt like a gut punch. Sad not to be included. Best with the game. #share love." So, this is quite sad that he's not going to be in the game. Many people thought he was the best character of the game. One of his favorite quotes, or the favorite quote people have for him, is this. Quote, "If your weapon is falling apart, the only wasteland asshole it's gonna kill is you." Although it's sad that he won't be returning, I have some more pressing concerns about this game that actually have to do with the length. Skyrim I loved, but I was only able to pour about 170 hours into it before it felt like I was just swimming around in, as Total Biscuit likes to say about the game, an ocean with the depth of a puddle. Now, Fallout 4 is aiming to be 400 hours long at least, and if the lead producer is still discovering things at that length, it might end up reaching 500. Now, for people who don't know, a week in total is like 120 hours long. Somewhere around there, maybe 124, 128, something around there. So 500 hours, you're looking at about a month straight if you play day in, day out, no breaks, no food, no water, no bathrooms, no nothing. A month straight of gameplay. If none of it has that much story involvement, I'm not going to be interested past the first maybe 100 hours. The only game I've ever spent anywhere near 500 hours in was probably, I think I put about 300 straight hours into World of Warcraft. And when I say straight, I don't mean I just actually played it for like 300 hours straight. I mean that over the course of my playing, over a few years, I probably played it for about 300 hours straight. So I haven't put that much time into a game since I quit that game about 2-ish years ago. Now, one of the things I loved about The Witcher 3 was that it had so much gameplay content, but all of it had a story, all of it had depth, all of it made you feel connected to the world, and all of it made you care about the world. So if they can't do the same with Fallout 4 and really make you engage to the characters you find during those 500 hours of gameplay, there won't really be any point to doing it. We've been shown that it can be done. CD Projekt Red has showed us this, and many people have compared Witcher 3 to Skyrim in the context of story and mentioned that Skyrim and Bethesda are going to need to step their game up. There are so many open world games coming out now that actually just have a wealth of story and a wealth of depth to the world that Bethesda can't really get away necessarily anymore with just creating these huge open world sandboxes that you might wander around in for a week or two and then eventually just put down because nothing in it catches your fancy anymore. I'm also fairly worried about environment variation. Post-apocalyptic games, the environments are hard to differentiate from another, especially if it's all in the Boston area. Hopefully we'll get to go out of that and into some other states a little bit, but I am worried that they won't be able to differentiate the environment enough that I'll actually want to wander around it for 400, 500 hours. There's also the issue that a lot of players who might have had time in the earlier Elder Scrolls game or the earlier Fallout games to spend that much time on a game won't have it anymore because they've gotten older and they have other priorities now. I know me, I'm doing college, I'm doing this YouTube channel, I have a girlfriend, and I'm also holding down a job outside of that. That means that I don't have much time to play video games. The only time I spend playing video games, I actually spend playing Let's Plays for this channel and doing videos for this channel, which amounts to about 1 to 2 hours a day of gaming. I know most people are in the same boat as me. If you have a job, if you're trying to hold something down, and if you have a relationship on top of that, you don't have much time to just spend wandering around for 400, 500 hours and wasting an entire month of your life chasing pixels. So it is a concern to me that they won't make this content rich enough, but I am definitely happy to see the money value for hour played going up drastically with our last few games. This year has been a big year for these huge sprawling open world titles that give you a great time investment for money paid, and I absolutely love to see that in my games. So overall, cautiously optimistic. I have no idea how I'm going to Let's Play this game because it is slated for a Let's Play, but I don't want to just do some Let's Play that's going to last for like 3 years. Even if I released an hour-long video every single day, it would still take me about a year and a half to even just get through this motherfucker, so I'll probably just end up uploading Easter eggs and some story highlights or something like that. So overall, I'm cautiously optimistic, as I said, for Fallout 4. I think it's going to be great however it turns out. I'm looking forward to it. I just hope they can add in the depth and richness to the content that it will need to keep me enthralled for all of those many hours of gameplay. Now let's move right along to some new story information we've got concerning Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. This is the last news story for today, and it's also by far the biggest. The Blu-ray disc included in the collector's edition of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain contained a lot of information that actually was story sensitive. It had half-finished cinematics and storyboards that laid out the story to an episode of the game that actually wasn't released called Kingdom of the Flies. It was intended to be episode 51 of the currently 50-part game. The footage is fully voiced and links Metal Gear Solid 5 to other games later in the series, most importantly, the original Metal Gear, which is next in the series chronology. Now, fans have been clamoring about this and wondering just what the hell happened. Did Konami decide to cut it because of time constraints? Did Konami decide to cut it because they wanted to sell it to us later? If that's the case, why did they give us a Blu-ray disc with this information? Most importantly, fans are wanting to see this episode, episode 51, Kingdom of the Flies, completed and released to the public, preferably for free. However, with the dissolution of Kojima's studio, we don't know if this will actually be able to happen. So I will link the YouTube video that someone made of all of the Kingdom of the Flies episode in the description of this video. If you finish the main story for Metal Gear Solid 5, I would highly suggest watching it because this contains a lot of good story info that people have been asking where just was it at in the actual Metal Gear Solid 5 game that was released to most of the public. People have been commenting about how bare bones the story was in this Metal Gear game. Most Metal Gear games had a wealth of story, and if they didn't, at least had a bunch of convoluted shit that you could wander through for hours and wonder just what the fuck it all meant. This game had none of that and featured mostly the gameplay with some bare bones story that seemed just kind of laid on over it, and this episode seemed to have been where a lot of the story development actually went, and it seems to be why the story was so threadbare in this game. Now, obviously, I want this released to the public. I'd want to see this as a fully finished cutscene and as a fully finished mission because the concept art and the cutscenes look awesome. And it's kind of horrid that this didn't actually make it into the final version of the game when it's so vital to anybody who likes Metal Gear story. Now, admittedly, I'm not the biggest story fanatic when it comes to Metal Gear. I'm confused as shit by the whole thing, and I know a lot of people are in the same boat as me, but for people who do love it, and even for people who don't, it is important to get that story in there just so you can kind of hint at some of the stuff that's going on in it. Now, there are a few options. As I said before, Konami could have cut this due to time constraints, and then maybe offered the Blu-ray disc in as a gesture of goodwill to people who paid more for the collector's edition. That would be a pretty shitty move, but Konami is kind of legendarily shitty. We've seen recent reviews about how their workers work in absolutely horrid conditions. They downsize developers to janitorial positions once they're done doing something. They're just not the greatest company overall in terms of treating their workers how they should treat them. So it wouldn't be surprising that they cut corners on Metal Gear Solid 5 that Kojima probably didn't want cut. We know how much he loves the game. We know how much effort he pours into it. I mean, for fuck's sake, he's probably one of the greatest minds. Not probably, he is one of the greatest minds in recent years in gaming, and they are dissolving his studio. Who knows, maybe they'll make a Metal Gear Solid 5 pachinko machine to replace him with. This is kind of a travesty to me. I definitely hope that people will get on the petitions and get this into the game, get this released to the public, because cutting content like this from a game is absolutely horrid and should never be done under any circumstances. Alright guys, that's it for today. I'll probably release another video talking more in depth about the Metal Gear Solid 5 issue, but I want to keep these videos shorter than all my other ones, which admittedly are like an hour long, just so that you guys don't have to sit and listen to something and you can get your quick bites of daily gaming news. Alright, I hope so much that you guys might give a like, a share, a dislike if you think the video deserves it, a comment, a sub, whatever you think this video deserves. Feel free to give it. Anything helps to grow the channel. Tomorrow we've got more Metal Gear and Mad Max Let's Plays coming out. And yeah, should be some cool stuff coming out on the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, GM out.